And so, touching on media representations again, you've, been at the level of kind of this, individual decision making when it comes to, helping publicize, content and events. And then, now obviously in your research, you study that from the other side. And you study it kind of on a collective basis, looking at these mass representations. And so, what recommendations, might you have from your research for the media to you know, give better and more accurate representations of marginalized communities? And, do those recommendations look a little different for, maybe what an individual publicist should do versus what the media as a whole needs to address?
So I think the goal is the same for the individual as well as the institution. Inclusion, bringing people of different experiences, different identities to the table, and they're interwoven throughout the entire structure. So not just bringing in a few Black, Brown, Indigenous, gay, straight, trans, class status, veterans as grad students, but they should be tenured faculty and administration and undergrads and grad students and staff members and janitors, like having inclusive identities interwoven throughout the entire system would get us there. That goes for media, just like academia. And for individuals to champion that goal. So if you are a white grad student and all the faculty is white and all of your peers are white, to start to ask questions. And when it's time for recruitment, because grad students are usually hands-on, at least in most departments, with the incoming recruiting class, to ask questions. Are we going to bring in more students of color? Or when there's a new hire and grad students get a chance to go to job talks, to say, it'd be really interesting if we brought in someone from a different perspective or a different point of view. And so in your individual day-to-day lives, champion inclusion, and then systems need to champion inclusion and make it pervasive throughout the entire structure. Newsrooms benefit not when they have just Black investigative journalists, but when they have brown editors and they have indigenous media content creators and they have transgender marketers and they have, I'm trying to think of all the identities, folks with disabilities who happen to also be in charge of, social media promotions. When people are interwoven throughout every single sector of an institution, it becomes more inclusive, fairly represented, and you can find a way that the outward product is more inclusive because everyone had a say in what went out. Oftentimes, when companies, including media companies, release something that's xenophobic or ethnocentric or racist, it's because the folks who made the decisions didn't have anyone in that room who represented those communities. And I, for one, am tired of apologies from majority white boards when the reality is, I don't want your apology. I want you to change the system. And that's kind of the conversation we're having now as people are looking towards inclusion. I don't want to teach you how to see me as a human being. I want you to hire folks who look like me so we can actually do the real work of inclusion. The reason why I made so much money this summer in the midst of COVID, where people were hurting, people were paying me to come and give talks on DEI, was because everyone around them was white. You wouldn't have to pay me if there were people on your board and on your staff and in your institution that were Black and brown and indigenous and Asian and that were gay and straight and trans and cis. You wouldn't have to bring me in. You would actually have it reflected around you. And so on the individual and the institutional level, bring folks in. We are not unicorns. We're everywhere. And I say we, anyone and everyone on the margins. That idea, it's so hard to find an indigenous scholar. It's so hard to bring in a Black content creator. No, it's not. You're lazy. You are relying on your social circles. And we tend to hang around people who look like us, who have the same kind of lived experience as us, who grew up in the same general locations. So when you say you can't find someone, that means you were only looking in that small circle of folk who happen to go to church with you and whose kids go to the same school. So you can't find them because you're not looking for them. And that's too much. Last thing, and I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent. I was on someone else's talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think it was Ibram Kennedy or Eddie Glaude, someone. So I was listening, and they said to themselves, and they were talking about LSU, which was so fantastic. They said, if Coach O didn't bring in a strong roster of football players every year, he would lose his job. What if deans, if they didn't bring in a strong roster of grad students and academics, lost their job? And my mind was blown. So Coach O values talent, and it supersedes identities. What if deans thought the same thing? I want to bring in talented grad students, talented faculty, and talent is not meritocracy. Talent is unapologetic lived experiences so that we have a stronger, more viable department. And if they didn't, just like Coach O, they could lose their job. That would be groundbreaking as far as what it looks like in our spaces to make sure that we champion inclusion.
Thank you. So we're about to move into our last round of questions, just our quick questions. Really quickly before I do that, maybe in 30 to 45 seconds, can you just quickly talk about, one of your recent projects, like either Black and Essential or the Votes Count project? You can just pick whichever one.
35 to 40 seconds. So my Black and Essential project, can be super fast, is actually it's a massive project. It's a massive undertaking. There's 4 different waves. I'm in wave number 3 now. And so in the midst of COVID-19, I wanted to use my research and use my social capital to figure out how Black folks are navigating COVID-19 and the racial unrest as a result from George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless other Black lives that are lost via state-sanctioned violence. So the E Pluribus Unum Fund, which Mitch Landrieu, former mayor of New Orleans, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Baton Rouge, I'm trying to think, the Social Science Research Council, and the Governor's Task Force, John Bell Edwards, all gave me a lot of money to really dig into those narratives and to look at some of the ways in which the community is surviving and thriving and some of the issues the community is facing. And then to take all of that research and go back to these folks who are making decisions and spending money and creating policy to really help. And so I'm excited about this project. I'm super proud. We're in wave 3. So that means collecting lots of data, giving talks, writing up manuscripts. But I'm learning so much because I'm Black. I've been Black for 39 years. But like one thing I've learned is that Black folks, if you give them technology, that's great. But if you don't teach them the full breadth of that technology, that's a problem. So digital literacy is something that just popped up. And so Black and brown communities are twice, if not 3 times as likely to die from COVID because of a bunch of systemic factors. But the reality is Black folks can utilize telehealth and talk to their doctors like you and I are talking right now. Their doctors can send prescriptions to the closest CVS to their house. And then Black folks can use TaskRabbit to have someone go pick it up and bring it to their home. They can stay indoors and keep themselves safe because of technology. But do Black folks know that? That's the conversation I'm having right now. And I'm really excited. I have a wave of data coming in. 1,200 Black Louisianans are engaging in surveys now to understand if their doctors look like them, if they feel like they're represented within the medical industry, and if they are comfortable using digital technologies from a very vast perspective, but in a very strategic perspective when it comes to accessing medicine and healthcare. So this is the 3rd wave. So it's good stuff. I'm excited.
Okay, so real quick question about that. If someone is interested in, seeing the final result or learning more, is there some way they can find it now, or
Yep.
When can they look for that to come out?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, davidlstamps.com, and Black and Essential is the last tab. There's an executive report and a full report and some media, because I work with some TV and radio. So there's clips there from wave 1. So we're slowly rolling it out. So that was some initial work, and that's specifically about Baton Rouge Black residents. So it's some really interesting stuff, some interesting narratives there. That's where I started to dig into digital literacy in the medical field. So every wave produces more questions and more ways to interrogate other avenues. So if you go to my website, you can see that even if you Google Black and Essential, I hopefully, fingers crossed, my website will pop up. But my work with the Riley Center and E Pluribus Unum also have kind of press releases and executive reports on that first wave. I'm working on 2 manuscripts right now from that data. The third wave of data will come in, fingers crossed, next week. We had to slow down because of the election, had to get a president. And so that third wave, hopefully in January, we'll start to have those conversations. And within a new administration coming in, putting a new focus on relief, hoping to go back to Governor Bell Edwards and the mayor and say, here are some ways in which you can focus on communities, and we have data to back up why this is important. So you can go there to get started, but stay tuned because more stuff is to come.
Thank you. I know we're definitely going to have a lot of viewers interested in that. Okay, so now we're just going to move into our final round of questions. These are going to be kind of like quick questions, really short. So the first question is, do you have a favorite historical figure?
So yes, I think my favorite historical figure right now is James Baldwin. He's complex, he's multi-layered. I love his work, but it's really heady. Like I'm not smart enough to get it on the first read, which I like that challenge. I have to read his work 3 or 4 times to kind of break it apart, which means I'm learning. And he has this beautiful arc of learning what it means to be Black, learning what it means to be intersectional, learning what it means to be unapologetic and pushing for justice. So he's not perfect, and he doesn't claim to be, but he's very visceral in the ways in which he's changing and learning and growing and putting himself out there. And his vulnerability is, to me, really attractive. I just love to read about it and unpack it.
I think that kind of, speaks to my next question. My next question was going to be a favorite author.
So he's not my favorite author because I'm not smart enough. I love his reading. I think my favorite author right now, because I read a lot, it's my job. The person who I love the most that I keep reading their essays is Toni Morrison. She passed away right before I started at LSU, and I didn't realize how much she meant to me. And I started rereading her essays, watching her clips, and similar to Baldwin, she openly talks about her space and the fight for equity and inclusion. And she was very unapologetic about what it meant to exist. And this is what draws me to both of them. So her work also, I read it and I have to keep rereading it, but it speaks to me in a unique way that lets me know it's okay. And I appreciate that.
I do have one question going off of that. I know, with Toni Morrison and some of her interviews, when she discusses her work, she talks specifically about the white gaze and kind of how she wants her characters to exist, on their own, in their community, not having to constantly think about it, this view cast on them. And so I was wondering, because you talk about, unapologetically being yourself and occupying these spaces, do you feel like that's a lesson that you've kind of internalized from her work?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned to you earlier, so people can go back and rewind. I'm not interested in respectability. I'm not interested in assimilation. I'm not interested in, acclimating to cultures that arguably have worked to erase my existence or minimize my existence. That I attribute a lot to Toni Morrison and countless other amazing figures who have made it okay. And not just to be Black, but to be you and what that looks like. Like I'm a parent and I'm a partner, and I grew up, in the midst of the crack epidemic, which really impacted my view of the world and my experience. And again, that's a part of who I am. And so I don't want to downplay or whitewash it, or as Toni Morrison, and you're right, Justin, I give you some props for this. She unapologetically says, I'm not thinking about the white gaze. It's not that she hates the white gaze. It's just not a part of her everyday experience. And it shouldn't be a part of anyone's, yours either. Like you should get up and just be you because it's okay to be you. Like we should all have that freedom. And sometimes many of us are socialized to accommodate one specific idea. And it's all throughout history. How we dress, the way our hair is, how we speak, how we engage in certain spaces. It's to support some idea that really minimizes all of our existence. And I don't know how to dismantle that, but every day I try to practice being unapologetic. So as an individual, I can work to tear that down. Even with my own children, it's okay to be you. You want to wear pink, wear pink. You want to play basketball, play basketball. You want to, like, there's no one way to be black or cis or male or rich or poor or, there's no one way to do anything. And this idea that there's a right way to do things is highly problematic. And that's what I think personally Morrison is referencing. The white gaze means that our existence is to placate to one dominant idea. And that idea is limiting and arguably and historically oppressive. Once we move away from that, there's a sense of freedom that many of us have yet to really embrace and encounter.
Thank you so much for that. I think we just have a couple kind of everyday questions for you to end with here.
Okay.
What's one thing you can't leave your house without?
um, I don't have anything I can't leave my house without. Like I'll be honest with you, like I hate my phone. I hate it. I don't. I have like literally like 900 text messages because I'm just like whatever they're gonna say they'll call. I don't check my voicemail. I just don't. I do the things I have to do, like answer my parents when they call and check my email because my students deserve my response. So that's my keys. I have a smart door, so I leave my keys all the time, and thankfully I have a code to get in my front house. So clearly that's something I leave the house without all the time. I think the only thing I leave the house with is underwear. Like I got it. Like I need to be appropriate in public. Like if I'm going to go jogging or go to the gym or go pick up my kids from school or head to campus, that's important. But other than that, there's no physical thing I have to have. I'm willing to let anything go at any point in time to live my best life. So, and if I can lose my phone, it would be a great day.
Okay, so before we get to our last question, I know it came up earlier. We recently had a presidential election. If you were elected president, if we had president stamps, what is the first thing that you do?
Um, ooh, and there's no barriers. There's no like checks and balances. I can just do it, right?
Yes.
Um, Create an equitable space by flooding folks with funds. So immediately forgiving student loan debt, making 2-year and 4-year state schools free, going beyond a $15 an hour minimum wage. I think that there's a massive gap between education because schools are funded by local taxes. So if schools had appropriate funding, every school can have computer labs. Every school can close the digital divide. Every school can hire faculty. If everyone made a living wage or more, they can, we wouldn't have to have communities that are food deserts or medical deserts. So I would just want to, being fully aware of all the ways in which funds can help close gaps, I would want to immediately address all of those. So if you don't want to go to college, that's fine. So student loan debt doesn't necessarily impact you. But whatever job you do work, you now make a living wage so you can buy a house and send your kids to a good school, or if you don't have kids, go on great vacations, whatever your life may be. So to use money, which is just paper, it's just the only value is what we assign to it. But to make sure everyone can live their best life. So right now, we're not talking about essential workers who are arguably sacrificial because they can't take care of themselves. They're essential because they have to go out in the front lines because they make an hourly wage. And if they have insurance, it's tied to their job. And if they don't show up, they don't have sick days. And like I want to like we need to reimagine what economics looks like and what it means for everyone to have access when it comes to those types of systems. Day one, executive order, no one can touch me. Money, just make it rain everywhere so we all can just take a breath. That was a good question. It's never going to happen, but I like that.
That was a great answer. Okay, so my last question, and I think some of your students might already see where the answer to this is going, but do you watch sports? And if not, what do you watch instead?
I don't watch sports. I've never played a sport. This is the first institution where I've ever attended, and I'm a professor that has like, is it like NCAA? Like I don't know, like SEC is a big deal. I don't want anyone to judge me. I've never went to a school that had a football team. So I don't watch sports at all. Although I do tend to check the LSU football game like on my phone, just because I know it's going to be a conversation piece on when the week starts, whether we win or lose. So I don't. If I am watching ESPN or one of those stations, I'm gonna be honest, it's twice a year during the cheerleading performances because those are fantastic. And I love watching the Olympics. I love watching gymnastics and track and field. But that's it for sports for me. If I am just laying on my couch, just watching TV to kind of like check out, I love young adult drama. Like I'm so excited that like Gossip Girl is like they're a new cast that's more queer and more people of color. But I love the old cast. I had a chance to work with Blair Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds. I worked with them on the campaign when I was at Universal. They're awesome people. I love the first show, but I just love young adult television. Maybe because I'm old and their problems seem so small, so I can just watch it and have no care in the world. But yeah, that's me in front of the TV. It's like I'm watching Vampire Diaries. Don't judge me.
Uh, Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dr. Stamps. Just one final thing. I know a lot of people are going to be interested to learn more about what you're doing after seeing this interview. So could you mention one more time your website where they can find out more?
Absolutely. So my contact information, my research, projects like Black and Essential all exist on my website. I made the website myself, so it's not flashy. It's just a great space to kind of engage with me if you want to, including like my Twitter feed. So it's my name, David L, the letter L, my middle name is Leon, Stamps, Stamps, like postage stamps.com. But you can also follow me on Twitter at David Stamps the second, two I's. I am constantly engaging in different ways, unapologetically, so folks can join me in different ways. Another good thing for grad students, if you do go to my website, all of my research is there. So I put up all of my articles and stuff. So if people want to engage why they build out their research program or talk about different types of methodologies, I love those conversations and I'm greedy. So I do experiments, I do survey research, looking at regressions and path analyses. And I also do qualitative work and critical cultural work. So I refuse to choose one method. So if folks have questions about how to engage with their research in different ways, I love those conversations. I like grad students a lot.
Thank you so much.